All right, everybody. I got my friend Ben on today. Ben, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Can you kind of tell everybody a little bit like what you're about, what you're doing? I know what you're doing, but I want you to tell everybody else what you're all up to.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for having me, Bo. I really appreciate it. Yeah, my name is Ben Johnson. I'm the CEO of Particle41. And we're really, think of us as special operations for your digital execution. So we have specialized teams that do data science, cloud engineering, or DevOps, and then, of course, software development. We also have a really amazing design team. So we just love helping people accelerate their digital ambitions, whether that be applications, data and AI, or just really tuning up their cloud environments.
So, what you guys are doing is it all things cloud based? Is it data analytics? What exactly do you guys specialize in?
Yeah, if it comes down to one thing, it's application modernization.
Okay.
So we've helped numerous clients either build brand new apps from scratch, modern applications from scratch, or we've we've even seen some COBOL out in the wild still, and transform that into modern cloud services.
That's awesome. Um, this one here is, yeah, I was mentioning to you before we started the show that I'm kind of a data nerd myself. I love analytics. I love looking at all of that stuff. I think for if you're in business, especially nowadays with the advancement in AI, the advancement in data analysis and all of that stuff, and advancement in software, right? Because now everything is so much more accessible with more and more softwares have their open APIs and all of that stuff. So what you can do with a lot of software nowadays is pretty amazing. And the fact that it's cloud based, which is probably one of the data centers are probably one of the fastest growing real estate ventures that are happening in the U.S. right now. It's pretty amazing what the next 5 or 10 years are going to look like in this industry. What do you think? What do you think your company is aiming for in the next 5 or 10 years with what your growth strategy is?
Yeah. So there's a bunch of different things that are coming to my mind to field that question and kind of talk about what we're seeing in the market. Since you're a data analytics guy, you're probably familiar with this concept of medallion architecture, where you have this bronze, where you're pulling in data engineering, the bronze layer. So you have bronze, silver, and gold. And without making this too long, bronze is really where you're pulling in raw source data, and you can still communicate business value out of your bronze layer. If you're pulling in information from your phone system, you can still give that business intelligence: how many calls, how many abandons, how many on holds, what was on our on hold time. But if you want to start comparing that to your orders and your conversion rates, then you got to bring that data, clean it up, and put it in silver and start combining it with other data sources.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually you get to this gold layer, which is like the dashboards out of the gold layer could be like reported to the SEC. I mean, they're pristine data products.
Mm-hmm.
And so we help people with that. But what I'm also seeing is now overlay AI on top of that. And what I would call the bronze layer of AI is people throwing ChatGPT at their employees and saying, hey, figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of the Wild West, right? I'm getting business value because I'm grabbing my call transcripts like we all are, putting them into AI, helping me write emails, these kinds of things. But my company has no idea how I'm using it. Unless I tell them, they don't know if I'm producing good quality results with my use of the LLM or and so what we're seeing a lot is that we're helping businesses move from those bronze concepts of AI to silver, which means we're combining the other things. We're building what the market is calling RAG databases, RAG, retrieval augmented generation. We're putting some traditional programming around the AI, combining it with proprietary data, and then eventually people are getting to gold, which is full agentic AI. Think of that as first tier customer support is fully automated.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're helping people progress through that journey But what we're finding is that people are getting really romanced by the production and the business value out of bronze, but they are completely losing track. And so that's what we're seeing in the market, and we're just helping people wade through the romance of generative AI in their business, and then the realization that wow, we need to put some controls in place. We need to know what people are doing. We need to know what the use cases are, and help them to move from bronze, silver to gold. I'm using that metaphor, but we're really helping them get to that full agentic solution where certain functions of their business are trusted and they can depend on them.
Yeah, I mean, I could totally relate to that because we we are getting ready to migrate to a new ERP at one of our businesses, and we're moving from a Sage product to NetSuite, and the Sage product is very old. It's almost I was the one that implemented it almost 20 years ago, and it's it's server based, so it's local server, right? And so
Yep,
to the point where it's 32-bit. It's not even, you know, 64. Like you can't even export an Excel file into it unless you have a 32-bit Excel version on your on your local machine. But anyways, what what we're finding in this conversion is exactly to your point is putting in the processes and the right data points in NetSuite and automations so that we don't have so much inaccuracy with our data, so that we can report on it way more accurately than what we have done in the past. So I think it's very exciting. At the same time, you have to, you know, worry about not having analysis paralysis by analysis, which you can get with a lot of these dashboards too, right?
for sure. For sure. Yeah, the idea that you can get business value at each layer of your progression is what we're
Mm-hmm.
really embracing.
Mm-hmm.
And that keeps the business engaged. We don't believe in big bangs. We want to get
Mm-hmm.
some data, we want to report some value and progress. And when we use AI, we want to try something, get value, and the same general progression and maturity there. And certainly, I think people are looking at their proprietary data. We have one client that has 20 years of PowerPoint spreadsheets, and a lot of research has gone into producing those. And so they want to take the content there and turn it into a RAG to see if they can speed up the production of future
Mm-hmm.
PowerPoint presentations.
Mm-hmm. Do you think um, do you think that with the advancement in AI that you're going to see a lot of these development company, DevOps companies kind of, I don't want to say fizzle, but be less and less? And the only reason I ask that is, again, going back to my point of the NetSuite implementation that we're doing. A lot of customization that's done in NetSuite you have to write in JSON. And so the third party consultant that we had hired to help us do the implementation of the software, um, you know, they kind of give you like the white box, right? It's just very basic, and then if you want all of these other features, it's all customized, and then you've got to pay for it. Um, and so there was one particular customization. I wouldn't even call it a customization, but it was auto generating these numbers based on proposals that we were putting out, right? Because NetSuite doesn't auto generate, you would have to manually enter it. Well, you know, any kind of manual entry is just risk for major data error, right? So we wanted to automate that. And they wanted to charge me like $8,000 to do this auto generated script. Well, I went to ChatGPT and I said,
Yeah,
"Hey, I want I need a JSON code. I need a script in NetSuite to be able to do such and such and such." And it spit out a code, right? I deployed the code. It errored. I told ChatGPT what the errors were. ChatGPT recycled the code, fixed the errors, redeployed it. Boom, worked. Saved myself $8,000. So my long-winded story is asking you, like, when a lot of these software companies start having AI native to their platforms, do you think that some of these DevOps companies will will shrink because you could just ask AI what you want it to do and it will write it for you?
Yeah, perhaps. So I think all of us are going to be able to do more with less.
Mm,
Every industry will feel that us as professionals we're able to do more with less. And so where you might have needed, a 5-person team, maybe you just need two.
mhm,
However, AI also presents a risk that you can create a lot of bad really quickly. And so if you
mm,
don't know what right is, I really caution companies that don't have software development as a core competency starting to create a bunch of software with junior people that don't know what right is. And so
mm,
I still think the need for partners who've been there and done that is still really high. Anytime we agree with the customer to use AI to help build the software, and there's some problems we can and some problems we can't, we're going to get to the end result faster, and that savings in our model is going to be passed on to the customer.
mm,
So, companies that sell project based work, they're going to keep that margin. They're going to still charge the same for the package, and they're going to be able to fulfill the responsibility of that package faster, and they're going to be more profitable. With our model, if we can get to your outcome faster, then you will pay less. So
mm.
I think there's a good and a bad there. And so yes, it is attractive how fast, but we've recovered a lot of projects that were very vibe coded, and they just didn't know what right was, and so we
Mhm.
had to go undo that. So it can also give you kind of a false sense of security. So will we all be able to do more? Absolutely, but we need to know what right is, because the AI will not tell you that you are wrong. It just
Mhm.
doesn't, unless you ask it to tell you if you're wrong. It's not going to tell you that you're headed down the wrong path.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Um, do you guys work on, like, any type of software model, or is it specific to certain industries?
No, we're very diverse. We even have one of the things that we work on where we really can't use AI is we create VR experiences in the Oculus headset for safety company,
Oh, wow.
and so the physics engine and all of that is proprietary. So we have to keep AI far away from that because that's uh, company IP. So we wouldn't want to share that externally. And then the AI has no point of reference for that physics engine. It's completely proprietary. And I also want to say something else. Like this, what's also cool about this transformation is I know there's a lot of allure of using off the shelf software, but what if a custom solution can be achieved faster and more precisely? So rather than working within those limitations of NetSuite in your example, what if you could just take a look at a problem and say, this is exactly what we need? And the same amount of time that it takes to get NetSuite right, you could have a custom software that did exactly what you needed it to do.
Hmm.
So it's now the if the barrier of custom software is reducing, then do we really need these enterprise grade solutions, or can we be more surgical with the implementation of software? So while I understand the allure of low code or no code solutions, I always find that the end result is like, man, we could get it 80% of the way there to what we needed, but then we bumped up against these limitations and had to create modules or services that could get us over the line. And so you end up doing some level of custom programming, anyways. And so I'm always cautious with clients about, like, hey, I'm just going to grab this thing off the shelf and it's going to do exactly what I need.
Mm.
Because anytime you're trying to customize rather than build, you'll end up with some trade offs.
Yeah. Uh, that brings up two good questions about that. One is, and I'm gonna ask you both so I don't forget them. One is, to the cost of creating a custom software, is it gonna be less than just going with a, pre-built ERP like NetSuite? And second is, do you have to have somebody that is always there, a developer that could, fix bugs and fix code that maybe fails, throughout the course of time?
Yeah. So I'll use your NetSuite example, and NetSuite's a great tool. So this isn't I don't want anybody to hear this and be like, man, you're down on NetSuite. But let's think about your journey here. So you're going to have to pay NetSuite licenses forever. So
Mm-hmm.
take that NetSuite per user per seat cost and just put that all the way down the P&L forever and ever,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then you're going to need NetSuite engineers. And my experience is they're kind of hard to find,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to need some of them to help you with the customization. And then that customization is going to need maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
So are you really in any different of a place than having a capital expenditure project to build the software and then maintain that software long term? My argument is that the license cost is would become your maintenance cost in a custom project. But the great thing here is you get to control all the features. So you get to say, well, we need a little bit more of this, or we need a little less of that. My users have that. And then in the NetSuite ecosystem, you're looking for a plugin or an extension. And
Yeah.
so my argument is that you need experts either way to help
Mm-hmm.
you get to the end result.
Mm.
But the custom software has this interesting promise of we could control our budget below the licensing cost at some points in time in our trajectory. There may be a time where we achieve done, and then we're not when we're paying a low maintenance cost or we're just paying. But also, I get full control. I get to create the user experience that I really want to create. Now, am I going to do that on accounting software? Probably not.
Mm.
But I am going to do that. I am really going to talk about that when it comes to my customer's experience. So taking an off-the-shelf software and sticking it in front of your customer never goes well.
Mm-hmm.
And so you want to think of like, okay, is this solution close to my user or far away? An accounting software is generally really far away from your end customer. At best they receive an invoice, right? It's not a
Mm-hmm.
differentiating item. But if it's involved in the customer communication and the customer experience in any way, that's probably a good time to really think about custom option.
I'm sure it's. I know this is a very hard question to answer because it's too general and it's probably more industry specific. But what do you think it would cost to stand up a custom software typically?
Yeah, that's such a variabilized answer. The way that we approach that is what kind of team do you need? And then you subscribe to that team monthly, and we just keep attacking the highest priority item in an agile sprint based fashion. So we do it
Mm.
with you.
Mm-hmm.
And we have designers that are showing that vision and revealing what that's going to be like.
Mm-hmm.
In most calculations that I've come across, if a company really knows the user experience that they want, it's very at par with an off-the-shelf software, but then they own the IP and they're not bound to a licensing cost forever. So I would stand an aggressive, lean, custom process next to a big. But again, this is something that a company has to really. Do they want? Do they want custom software to be a core competency, or they just want to grab something and start? So this is partnering versus building, build versus buy kind of thing. And there's a lot of factors that go into that decision making process. It's not a one size fits all. But cost wise, I haven't seen large ERP implementations be cheap.
Yeah. Right.
So I think it if you compare the two, it gives you a lot of budget to do something custom.
Yeah. Um, Plus, the other side of that too is if you're the type of business where maybe you're trying to make your business attractive for private equity loves that custom layer on the operations side because that sets you apart from everybody else, right? I know a lot of I heard this I don't remember I heard on social media where um, a private equity went in. I don't remember which state it was, but they ended up buying up all of the mom and pop HVAC companies in the area, and they created a unified software so that if you called Bob's or you called Alpha Heating and Cooling, you were getting the same exact price regardless of who you were calling because it was still owned by the same private equity group. And so they
Right.
were able to basically control the market in terms of pricing but they did that through a customized unified software solution where it didn't matter if the foreman from this company or that company went on site, it was still going to be the same price.
Yeah. The powerfulness of having custom software, or at least a really refined software suite, whether it be customized NetSuite or custom software, is then franchise models, acquisition models, and
Mm-hmm.
bringing people into that management model really is
Mm-hmm.
attractive. And yeah, if you've done something special there, and you can control the costs, like you could have something to really grow and scale with.
I I'm actually doing two migration slash implementations at the same time for two different companies. I don't recommend that one bit. It was not planned that way. If you've ever been part of a implementation, you know the date always gets pushed further and further out. But the one is for my gym business. We're getting ready to move to a new member management software,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a recurring service model, right? So you have a large database of members. You're tracking check-ins. You're tracking uh, purchases through a point of sale, memberships, billing of those memberships, all of that stuff. Um, I'm part of a roundtable of other gym owners across the U.S. and we've all been doing demos with various software companies in this realm. And there's like one has something that we really like, but then it's missing this over here. But then this one has this, and it's missing this. I thought like we actually were at all of us were at dinner one night, and somebody said, "Why doesn't someone just develop a software?" And I was like, "God, the cost to stand up a software for that has got to be outrageous." But as I'm sitting here talking to you, I mean, that could be a huge opportunity where you could, you know, build a custom software for your own location, beta test it basically, work out the kinks, and then possibly scale it, to other gym owners across the US, if not the world, which I know is what a lot of these software companies do, but I just know it's so much work to maintain and stand those things up.
Yeah, for me being a builder, the build cost is part of it, but that marketing and biz dev and growth cost is another component. So
Mhm.
you got to know your audience and know that you could sell into that niche, and you got to understand competition, and there's a lot that goes in. The go to market, the marketing cost um, is the hidden dilemma, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
when you're comparing, 100 user ERP license to custom software, that's different than you're saying, hey, I'm going to create this for myself, so I'm going to invest, and then can I get that return on investment? It turns from a build. um, when we think about partnering versus building, what we have to think about partnering is the skill there is partner management.
Mhm.
And so what as you review those different softwares, if you were to pick one, then you would have this skill to follow up with them. What's on your roadmap? What's important to you? What are they going to build next? That's the partner management side that many entrepreneurs neglect. They've made this choice to partner, but they're not managing the partner.
Mhm.
And so a lot of times when I look at a whole stack of services that the customer is, that my customer is subscribed to, that often comes up that like they have for every employee they have maybe they're on Gmail, so they have a bunch of Gmail licenses, and they've needed Microsoft products, so they have Office 365 licenses for every employee. So you
Yeah.
kind of have to look at the partners that you're using and then go, okay, well, what's on Google's roadmap? How are they evolving Gemini? What's on Microsoft's roadmap? How are they evolving Copilot? Should we choose one versus the other? So, partner management is just because you partner doesn't mean you don't need a skill to get the most out of that investment. On the build
Mhm.
side, the skill's innovation, and then it's go to market, and it's marketing, and it's, there's a suite of skills around innovating and building that you have to be good at. And I think that's part of the decision is, are we good at partnering? Are we good at building? And we're going to do both in
Yeah.
the trajectory of our business. But that partner management's really important. Do you know your partner's roadmap? The things that you're investing in, like we invest in Netflix for, yes, for the content they have created, but also for the content that they're going to create. If Netflix said, yeah, we're not going to do any blockbuster movies and pay actors to produce, we'd probably all just kind of go like, then I'm not going to subscribe
Yeah.
to Netflix anymore.
Right. Um, yeah, that's very interesting. In fact, the software that I'm getting to migrate over to was developed by a gym owner, and it's actually a fascinating story. He's got a PhD in physics. He was going to be a professor, and then he decided to start. He started one software company, exited, and then he started this software company because he wanted a better member management software for his clubs. And now he's grown it so quickly really in a short amount of time. I would say less than 10 years, which, I think for this industry is quite quick. And now I think they do, over $2 billion in transactions, not in sales, but in transactions, which is,
Sure.
that's huge. Right. And I agree with you. Cause like what you're saying, I think that their partner is Stripe for running all of the cards and the ACHs. So, like you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
like you have to understand where is Stripe's roadmap so that you can keep up on your side for how you're billing your recurring services.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, partner management is part of that skill. Yeah, I have a matrix about if you're going to build, buy, or partner. What are the different skills that you need in those areas? Like, what does that look like? And that's always really enlightening when clients see that and go like, "Oh, okay, I'm partnering, but I'm not doing some of these things
Mm-hmm.
to be the best subscriber that I could be."
Yeah. Do you do most of the hosting of software? I assume it's mostly cloud based, right? So are you just hosting on like AWS or Azure or?
Yeah, we just even did a really awesome data pipeline in GCP, Google Cloud. So yeah, we love all three clouds and are actively investing in all three clouds with our customers.
What do you think is probably the most innovative slash exciting software that you've built as of recently?
Um, Well, we've done some just things for ourselves that are really cool. Like I built a, I got curious and built a resume analyzer. So we have an application tracking software. We get about 500 applicants a week for
Wow.
various roles. So so you can't have a human go review all those resumes. So
Mm,
we created a scoring with Claude, and so every application that gets dropped in, we score it, and then we only spend our time on the highest value targets.
hmm.
And so some of these things are like 200 lines of code, but they save so much time. And yeah, so I think that stuff's really cool. Um, I think some of the things that we're seeing in just some of the automation software, Make.com, N8N, these AI workflow softwares are interesting. But we're building some agents that are really cool around like restaurant point of sale and the old rent to own space. We just modernized software, was originally in COBOL, and now it's modern web services, and so that's really cool. One of my kind of pet favorite clients is an online music school.
Huh.
So you go in and you can receive a lesson from a certified music instructor. Like imagine you're in Nebraska and you can get a music lesson from a Juilliard level piano teacher.
No kidding.
And so we built like two camera approach with the above the keyboard and face, and the teacher can see if the student is frustrated, or can see facial expression, but can also watch their hands on the keyboard. It's all virtual, so you don't have to leave the comfort of your studio to have a music lesson.
That's amazing. That's so cool. Huh. And that's live right now?
Yeah, a company's called Forte. They would love to have you as a customer.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to scope them out. I
Yeah,
used to do music lessons as a kid, so that'd be cool to just be able to do it right from your home.
yeah,
But you
yeah.
got to have a two camera setup, right?
You don't have to. You can just do the one, like if you're playing a violin, you can just
Hmm.
use the one camera
Yeah.
setup, and we just optimize the experience where there's no bezel, the music shows up in the right way where you still get maximum view of the student,
Hmm.
and they can just work on a lesson right from their respective studios. And we've handled the audio quality, so like the note sustains really well.
Mm.
Worked really hard to get the audio just right. On the internet, there's always latency, so it's a little difficult to
Hmm.
play together.
Hmm.
But you can send like you play it, I'll play it. That stuff works really well.
Yeah, that's actually I didn't realize this until recently when you were mentioning playing together. A lot of in the professional, I guess you would call it the professional music space. If if a couple of musicians, popular musicians, want to collaborate on a song, and most of the time their schedules don't sync up, so they'll go to one studio over here and one studio over here, and they're doing it live, right? They're recording the tracks live, but they're doing it virtually in two different places. They're not doing it in the same studio most of the times anymore.
Yeah,
I
there's been some
remember that
really
Taylor Swift just recently did something like that.
yeah. There's also been some really cool YouTubers. I wish I remembered this guy's name, but he got popular on YouTube by doing tracks. So there'd be like 12 of him. Like if you're old enough to know Brady Bunch, like
Hmm.
think a bunch of different windows,
Yeah.
and he'd do one track and then another and another, and then they'd kind of all orchestrate together. So he's definitely solid at the production process, and
Hmm.
I've seen some imitators of that. It's really cool how they're tracking not just the sound but the video,
Mm.
and yeah, that's always fun to see what people are creating.
With some of the stuff that you guys software that you guys developed, does AI how do I want to word this? Does AI make the code more efficient where you don't need as many lines of code to get the same result?
No, the underlying coding hasn't changed. You can say you write a Python class and you say, "Hey, can you make this more idiomatic?" If your Ruby is very idiomatic language, so if you write some Ruby code and you just want to see what does the AI think in terms of making this Ruby, Rubyized, more idiomatic, you can see what that looks like. Um, since the way that at least the public GPTs have trained themselves is off a lot of internet snippets and stuff.
Hmm.
It's not always they don't like it's hard. The AI doesn't always have to use like dry principles, like don't repeat yourself.
Hmm.
And so, like I said, you got to know what's right because the AI is not doesn't have a moral compass. So
Yeah.
sometimes that excellence of what is good code really still comes from the human.
Hmm. How did you even get involved in this? Like, what is your background that led you down this journey, this path?
Oh, thanks. I mean, thanks for asking. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. So I've built 5 businesses from start to exit, and worked with some amazing teams. Some of my first team lead is now my business partner. So
Mm.
I built a travel company, a couple of ad networks, built a company in 2015 in legal services, and sold it to LegalZoom in 2018.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
And then built a little SaaS company. I've also advised and invested in some other folks, some clients' projects. So yeah, I love just sitting at that, owning the tech strategy, but really partnering with that person that knows their industry, is a grinder, and has a vision for what they want, how they want to disrupt their industry, and I just love partnering. So Particle 41 is really just productizing that service of being a
Mm.
technical co-founder,
Hmm.
and helping people realize their visions.
Are you a coder yourself, or are you just kind of like you said, an entrepreneur that knows how to build the right teams?
Oh, definitely love coding. So I have a home lab here at the house.
Do you really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm self-hosting some stuff. I love that self-hosting community.
Hmm.
And so yeah, my work is my hobby. But as I've gotten older, I've really wanted to contribute to other people's visions in a bigger way.
Hmm. What are some of the languages that you know yourself, coding languages?
So I'm a really big fan of like Ruby and Python.
Okay.
Wrote some pretty big projects in Ruby.
Hmm.
Python's really great. I just like the expressiveness there, but at this point I'm a polyglot. So I've done Laravel on PHP. I just love the frameworks. And then in our teams, we have a lot of the .NET, the Java, the lower level languages. But I'm definitely been an internet programmer for the majority of my career.
Did you go to school for that, or are you just self-taught?
Well, when you went to school back in, I was in college in the early 2000s, they were teaching like C++
Yeah.
and definitely got some value out of, programming fundamentals, what makes Java Java, what makes C C, and those fundamentals were really helpful to me, understanding data structures, those kinds of things. But when at that time was kind of the .com bubble, and all
Hmm.
these programming frameworks were coming out. So early in my career, I liked Cold Fusion. We were one of my first companies when I was still in college. They had a Java team and a Cold Fusion team, and Cold Fusion was just a lightweight internet programming language. And we could build stuff so much faster, and the Java guys were still trying to figure out how to, put two lines of code together that could show up on the internet.
Hmm.
And so we were able to accelerate a lot of online projects just super quickly with the lighter weight internet framework. And I contributed to a framework called Fusebox, and then Ruby came around right after. It was pretty quick after that, and it just had a lot of those framework principles kind of built into it. Ruby on Rails, and just really enjoyed seeing what internet programming. Now the AI is just allowing us to create that stuff faster. But I haven't seen it really move into the where the AI is in the core. It's just, and that's where I just kind of stand on that soapbox of like, you got to know what right is, because you can create a lot of bad really quickly.
Hmm.
And I hope to see some really cool continued advancements in the core of the way people are writing software, the core frameworks. But
Hmm.
and it's changing every day. But yeah.
So explain to l- like the layman that doesn't know a lick about coding or coding structures or languages, right? What's the biggest difference between, a C++, a Java, a Python? Do they each do their own thing? I mean, how does all of that work? How do you know which language to use for what?
So I would say all roads lead to to success, right? Like, you're not going to make this was always really popular a few years ago. Like, oh, this is better than that, and um, one of my buddies built the back end of Words with Friends. So everybody probably remembers the Words with Friends games, like the Scrabble game and
Yeah.
the Hanging with Friends and Chess with Friends. They had a really cool suite. All of the With Friends games ran on the same back end, and that back end was built on Ruby. One of my buddies was the original author of that. Best man at my wedding, a guy named Jeff Dagley, who's really great. And so they didn't the acquirer Zanga acquired them and didn't really love this idea of Ruby, so they tried to rewrite it, and it just was
Mm,
really really rough to do that. So you kind of want to stick with what you know, but do it in a framework. And then also, is that community still active? Are they still versioning? Are we still getting new versions of Ruby on Rails and Ruby? And if something's dead, you need to know that it's dead. I remember arriving at one company, and they had written everything in CodeIgniter, and CodeIgniter had been end of life for a year before they started, and so that
mhm,
was a mistake.
mhm,
But I think just being able to organize your data, how the one of the biggest problems in software engineering is just naming things properly, naming them close to the way the business works, and making sure that you're diligent with that.
mhm,
And so, understanding your data, having a good data model. For the layman here, there's not really one that's going to win the day versus the other.
mhm.
It's just a matter of like and sticking with it. I've been part of some other companies that they let the developers decide the languages, and so a few years later they have 5 different languages going on, and it's hard to staff that.
Hmm.
So you want to kind of decide: are we a .NET shop? Are we a what kind of shop are we, and can we have some standardization, and can we kind of hold ourselves to some of these decisions? I think that's more helpful than well, did we make the wrong decision? I've also been a part of some projects that chose something, and then that thing evolved and they had to kind of upgrade along with it, and there were some hidden costs there. So
Hmm.
you don't know what you don't know. You just got to kind of pick and move.
But like, if you want to use Python, say, right? Python is
Mm-hmm.
more of a back end software, right? You're not gonna create a UI in Python, correct?
So the front ends. What I will say is one of the principles that's been around a long time is service oriented architecture. So you want to separate and have a back end that presents an API. This is going to create a
Mm.
lot of future opportunity for you. That back end can be written in whatever you'd like. So you have a ton of choices there: Python, .NET, and whatever you want to choose as your back end platform language. Front ends, we don't just have a web front end, we have a mobile app. I feel like people are going to present their backend in an agentic way. So they're going to say, hey, these are all the things that you could say to this thing that would get it to do stuff on the back end. So our client side interfaces are going to be in the best language for that.
Hmm.
So typically, what we see in the front end is a lot of JavaScript languages, TypeScript as the syntax, and that's pretty much uniform now in the industry. Is that we're going to do React or some form of JavaScript framework, and we're going to organize our front end code in that. And then mobile apps, you have great frameworks: React Native, Flutter, and these are going to help you expose to iOS and Android with the same code base.
Gotcha.
And so you're going to choose for front ends, you're going to choose the framework that best satisfies that particular front end. And so what a lot of businesses do, if they say, well, if we have to do the front end in these JavaScript type frameworks, let's do the back end in that too. So we
Hmm.
do a lot of TypeScript, node oriented services on the back end, and that's very successful. Then they have really TypeScript fluent developers that can do server side or client side, um, and um, and kind of show up full stack. So there's this idea of being a full stack developer where you know the
Hmm.
back end programming and the front end programming.
Regardless, to my limited knowledge, you still end up having to use. Do you still have to use SQL though to be able to call or restructure the data, or can Python and Java actually create the tables and all of that stuff too?
Yeah, most of the time in your backend languages, there's two concepts. There's an ORM, which allows you to use um, normal code syntax to access the database. You're not really writing SQL that often anymore,
Really?
and you wouldn't want to because uh, SQL is really the database's language. In data pipelines, we're understanding SQL and we're using that to access the data. But in your programming, you want to have more dynamic code that matches your framework. And then the other really cool thing is your migrations. So how is the database structure changing, and can we tie that to the deployment? So
Mm,
if I'm adding a column, I'm adjusting a column's type or something of that nature, I want that to go with the code.
yeah.
And so most modern frameworks will have an aspect of migrations. Migrations is what Ruby on Rails called it. .NET has this entity framework where you want to make sure that your code and your database are always in sync, and then that's going with the deployment, so that we never get to a place where the code expects a different data structure and that becomes disconnected. I showed up to one company at the beginning of a project. They had about 20 people in a room, and 7 of them were SQL engineers. And this was a sign of disaster because they had a monolithic application. So, a monolithic application is an application not written with the separation between front end and back end.
Mm,
And what they had been doing since they had an old monolithic application is if anything came up, they were just hacking the database.
mm,
And so all they had were all these SQL scripts, and they were just dying because had become unmanageable. So we help them create a language for handling some of those things, moving more of that code into the product, and then separating between the front end and the back end, helping them
Interesting.
reorganize the functions of the code.
When you're developing software for a client, is it is it just like a lump sum project base? Are you charging by the hour? Do you take a percentage? How does your fee structure work for Particle?
Yeah, so the way we do it is we allow customers to subscribe to the team, and they do
Mm,
that on a month by month basis. So we have to do good work and show results within the work month because we're paying next month's rent. So we're
mhm.
incentivized to be there SEAL Team 6, to be running with them, to be showing value all along the way, because we say, hey, you have this mission. Here's your monthly run rate. Here's what the team that is needed to get to that mission costs. And then we're just going to attack that mission with you, and you're paying monthly for the use of that team. So people are subscribing to our specialized teams. And they can do
Gotcha.
that for, if they just need to subscribe to a DevOps engineer, we're here for that. If they need to subscribe to our design team, then we're here for that too. So, but that's our working model. We've kind of taken the best of the project based outcome and staff augmentation and smushed them together to be mission focused, but have a really flexible working style where if they discover more work, discover more outcomes, we can ratchet up the team. If they
Mm,
need to control budget, we can ratchet down the team all within 30 days notice.
that's a very cool model. So it's just dependent on what your flow and budget's going to be like.
Yeah, and how much you want to get done, how fast, right? Like
Yeah.
a lever is to add more specialized teammates to that team
Yeah.
and crush a backlog. Or if we just need to get into maintenance mode and we need to just like really control the costs, like we're here for that. So we don't do any long-term commitments, but our average deal lifespan is like 18 to 24 months because
Wow.
we just are incentivized to do the best job possible, and it causes us to be visible and show our work and have a live project plan in front of the client,
Mhm.
and each developer updates their progress each day in front of the customer. Nobody's hidden behind a project manager, or it's what you would expect from your own internal team.
What's your average deployment time for a software? How long does it take to actually deploy?
So we've
Average.
done like MVPs in 90 days.
Wow.
The first version of Forte was done in 90 days. And then it really depends on the complexity, but we want to show work constantly.
Hmm.
And so we want to release as often, as frequently as possible. So if we can say, hey, let's just do this feature, and that feature takes 2 weeks, then we get that feature out. We try not to we don't want to overcommit ourselves. We want the team to make the commitment,
Right.
but we want the business to think in smaller chunks rather than a big bang.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. Ben, I love your model and what you're doing. I truly think it's brilliant because a lot of people have ideas, but they don't even know where to start, and they could come to you and you could help them, bring their idea to fruition.
Yeah, we start with some design, visualize the idea, build the
Hmm.
plan, and
Hmm.
then make sure we want to invest in that outcome. Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. Ben, thanks so much for coming on. Where can everyone get a hold of you, reach out to you, learn more about you and your
So I'm
company?
super easy to connect with. If you go to particle41.com and hit the schedule a call link, talk now, a couple of calls to action there, you will get right on my calendar. So I'm also available on LinkedIn. Unfortunately, I have a super common name. So it's a little easier just to go to my website and grab a minute and let's chat.
Okay. Ben, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Oh, my pleasure, Bo. Thanks for having me.